Blog Talk Radio.
This is the USA Emergency Broadcast Network, your source for reliable disaster preparedness information.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
Welcome to the Zeta Report here on USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. My name is Andre. I'm with USA EBN, and I am usually joined by Nancy Leader from ZetaTalk.com. Nancy, are you there?
I sure am, and looking forward. I want to discuss permaculture this hour, and it's not as dry as you might think. I'm not going to talk about the philosophy because actually, those of you out there who hate to go out and pull weeds and get your hands dirty are going to be thrilled to know that it's the lazy man's gardening. You will be surprised, and it's the less you do, the better. But before I get into that, let me quickly read our disclaimer in partnership with USA EBN. Zeta Talk and the Zeta Report will be discussing the challenges of living on a planet beset with change, rising seas, increasing earthquakes and volcanic activity, weather gone wild, and the worry of what to do in a worst-case scenario. We will also inject Zeta Talk prophecy on what is coming next and advice on readiness plans and safe locations. Whenever Zeta Talk is quoted, please remember that prophecy is not fact. It is opinion. It only becomes fact when it happens. The Zetas are remarkably accurate but have been wrong on occasion. Bear that in mind. For more information on this subject, please visit ZetaTalk.com or the Zeta Report on YouTube. Questions from the chat and issues raised in the chat will be addressed toward the end of the hour after the main feature has been presented. As I said, permaculture is in fact benign neglect. Don't mess with nature. Do what nature does. Allow compost to rot and be turned into nitrogen-rich soil by earthworms. Allow the biodiversity of fauna and flora to exist. All those pollinators, as honeybees are not the only pollinators. Utilize manure and urine for fertilizer, yours as well as your domestic animals, and do as little as possible so you don't disrupt Mother Nature in her work. She is old and wise, and man, unfortunately, is not. The Dust Bowl is an example. The plains of the American West had grass with deep roots, several feet deep as a 6-foot-tall man. The plains retained scant rains during times of drought, and the soil, never plowed, was as deep as the root system. You see these amazing photos where they have a plant that was dug up in the plains, tacked up against the wall, and the roots are dropping down, and they are longer than a 6-foot-tall man. It's amazing. Deep, black, rich soil. Enter man. In the years prior to the 1930s, there was plentiful rain, so when man plowed this deep, rich soil, it grew fantastic crops. As the crops depleted the soil, the farmers just plowed deeper. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s, which lasted a decade and affected an area as big as Texas across several states, was caused by messing with Mother Nature. When the natural drought cycle of the plains returned, all that open soil turned to dust. The billowing dust, which covered areas of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico, reached as far as the East Coast. Quoting Wikipedia, the prevailing winds blew away in huge clouds that sometimes blackened the sky. These choking billows of dust, named black blizzards or black rollers, traveled cross-country, reaching as far as the East Coast and striking such cities as New York City and Washington, D.C. Rainforests are being ruined in a similar manner, cleared and burned for temporary gardens on the thin soil underneath, or cut down for the timber and then left to rot away in the rains. The soil under rainforests is almost always thin, only maintained due to the undisturbed ecosystem. They look lush, but can quickly be destroyed. Local people clear a few acres by burning and then garden there, using the scant ashes as fertilizer. This lasts only a cycle or two, but the true ruin is timber cutting, clear cutting for profit. The American Indians used a different technique. They took the lazy man approach and saved the soil. They didn't disturb the soil. It's the permaculture way. They just poked seeds in along with a bit of fertilizer, such as fish parts. Another Indian technique was called the Three Sisters technique, to plant beans close to a corn stalk so they could climb and get sunlight. Then between the corn hills, they planted the low-growing squash or pumpkin. This companion planting approach. Beans returned nitrogen to the soil as corn depleted this, and the squash plants kept the weeds down. No-till farming is also helping Africa, which also has thin soil. Those areas that use these techniques are more productive than those using artificial fertilizer, which may not be available in the future. Quoting Wikipedia, less tillage of the soil reduces labor, fuel, irrigation, and machinery costs. No-till can increase yield because of higher water infiltration and storage capability, and less erosion. No-till farming can increase organic matter in the soil. So are you getting the idea that the less you do, the better, and if you're lazy and hate weeding, permaculture is the way to go? If somebody says, oh, your garden is a mess, you say, oh, I'm doing permaculture. I'm growing soil, and earthworms are, we'll go on and all the other techniques, but I think this is a boon. I used to love weeding, but that was when I was young and strong and didn't walk with a cane. Okay. Let's see. The Irish Potato Famine in 1845 was caused by overdependence on one strain of potato, a high-yield producer. They had a lot of rain, and the water mold Phytophoria infestans flourished. Permaculture stresses diversity to avoid these kind of situations. But here they were in Ireland, starving because their one food crop was just not there. Much of the push to leave Europe was caused by famine, poor agricultural practices creating depleted soil washed away by rain. Our current corporate farming uses petrol-based fertilizer, which may not be available in future due to the pole shift catastrophe. Poor soil, poor practices, and survivors will starve. This whole thing about just not Ireland, 100 years ago or more, 150, when my great-grandparents and grandparents came over from Germany, they were coming because there was starvation in Germany by depleted soil. They had a movie made of that era called The Immigrants, and it showed a family with young children, and one of their children died because she snuck in and ate some of the grains that were being puffed up by water, and it exploded her stomach, and so she hemorrhaged, and they said, that's it, we're moving to America, and so over they came. And, wandered around. And they even included, we have a railroad museum here in North Freedom where I live, a steam train, and they even included that in the movie as here come the immigrants getting on the steam train to go west, so it just pointed out, the reason, main reason for immigration in the past from Europe was lousy farming practices, and they had depleted the soils. Permaculture to the rescue. I often think of permaculture as benign neglect. Don't till the soil if you don't have to. Water the garden with your bath water, as soap is a nutrient. Don't bother to clean it up and go through all that trouble. And composting toilets and using urine in the garden helps with the sewage bill. Now, mind you, urine straight on can burn plants. If you notice, you set your dog out to the yard, and wherever he pees, it's a yellow spot. So you should age it. Put it in a bucket, let it age. I'm not sure just how long, but the point is that's what you should do for yours and for any urine collected from like manure scraped out of the yards, domestic animals, pigs, cattle, or whatever. Let it cook a while and marinate for a year. I remember when we had chickens here too. I was trying to get unload chicken fertilizer, and I went to a greenhouse place nearby. Said, "Oh, would you like this? I can bring tubs of it." I said, "Oh, it's great stuff, but it would kill all my plants. It has to be aged for like at least a year." That's what I was told. Okay, green compost is earthworm food and builds soil. Plus one can eat the earthworms. I mean, we're talking bare bones. We're talking you can have a small plot of land and do these practices. And you know what? You feed yourself, and wait till you hear how little the plot can be. You won't believe it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe as big as your garage or something. Anyway, weeds can be your friend, as many are edible and high in vitamins and minerals. Chickens are a natural bug eradicator as they eat them and then produce eggs and meat. Chickens love to eat bugs. Oh, they run for them. And it's so cute watching. The rooster will stand up there when he finds like an anthill. He'll go cluck, 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 and here come the hens. It's apparently a call when breakfast is ready or whatever. And I saw a hen snap a fly off my tennis shoe. And I couldn't believe, you couldn't even see the head move. It was that fast. Gone. You know how hard it is to catch flies. You're coming at them and whoop, gone. You have to be really quick. Well, they're really quick. Recycling is integral to permaculture practices. Nothing is waste. Any vegetables not eaten should be fed to chickens or rabbits or pigs. Compost piles with eggshells, vegetative scraps, and everything but animal fats or meats. Put roadkill or animal byproducts into a garbage bag with a few flies, and then it is full of fly larvae writhing there in the bag. Split it open and say cluck, 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 like the rooster does, and here come the chickens, and oh, they'll feast on it. So nothing goes to waste. I had my experience also with chickens that we would have. I was stunned. I thought they just ate grain or bugs, but they eat everything. And we would have melons, and you eat, cantaloupe or whatever, honeydew, and until you're down into the rind itself, and who wants to eat that? You can give that to the chicken, and it's gone. They consume everything. Okay, alfalfa or soy or bean crops return nitrogen to the soil. The water from washing dishes or clothes or bathing waters can go into the garden as soap is in essence makes a fertilizer. Composting toilets and urine can be used as fertilizer for the gardens. But as I said, it may need to age, before use. Barn manure is absolutely used to fertilize the fields. I mean, there are people. One of my favorite people here in the area was developed a business, and a good business, buying up manure and spreading it on various farm fields. That's what he did. He was the middleman. And you can see them out there, slinging the manure out there. Why not? There are certain plants like bulrushes that cleanse sewage effluent, which creates a pleasant marsh area housing ducks and fish or other edible wildlife. And these are known wild plants that are cleaner-uppers for sewage effluent. Permaculture farms often look messy due to this benign neglect, but are highly productive. A recent article in Return to Now states that 1/10 acre plot just outside of LA produces 7,000 pounds of food per year without any synthetic fertilizers. They use, and I quote, permaculture methods that mimic Mother Nature to create nutrient and bacteria-rich soils. Now, I don't know how big 1/10 of an acre is, but it's not big. I'm thinking, is it as big as a garage, Andre? I don't know. 2 garages, double garage. I'm just not sure. But it's not a lot of land. It's a little bitty place. Another article. Yeah,
Nancy, you figure an acre roughly is a couple of football fields, a little bit more. So like a square that size. So 1/10 of it would be if you had a corner lot on your house with a big lawn, take the house away, that'd be about a tenth, around there. So it's not a lot of room. I have a community garden that I farm that's roughly 20 foot by 30 feet. So I don't know how much of an acre that is, but I hardly work it enough to get 7,000 pounds out of it. I mean, maybe if I quit my job, I could permaculture.
Well, then
I'd have to at that point.
You have to recycle. You're not hauling your poop out there and your pee out there either, I'm sure.
No,
I doubt
that's
it.
Weird. But
yeah. And they practice full permaculture. Nothing goes to waste. Everything gets recycled, and the only thing that goes away is what you take away to eat, and then you bring back your poop and pee, and so nothing. I mean, it stays right there. It's Mother Nature's, recipe, and it works, as we can see, building soil, and things go on and on through the centuries, and so there you are. Another article in Small Footprint Family states that Growing Power in Detroit produces 87,000 pounds of food every year on less than 2 acres, again citing permaculture techniques. That would be 87,000 pounds in 2 football fields, from what you're saying. Yeah. The answer, and citing permaculture, and I quote, "The answers are in nature. Permaculture is an approach to designing human settlements and perennial agriculture systems that mimic the relationships found in natural ecosystems." And you go to read permaculture and you find people waxing on. It sounds like it would be a religion or something, poetic, but it's not. It's just such a simple concept. Benign neglect, lazy man's gardening. There you go. Recycle everything. Okay, and they say the answers are in nature. Permaculture is an approach to designing human settlements and perennial agriculture systems that mimics the relationships found in natural ecosystems. Growing Power in Detroit is one of the most famous examples of urban permaculture in the U.S. and produces 87,000 pounds of food every year, including fish, honey, eggs, and milk on less than 2 acres in the heart of Detroit. Well, if they're getting eggs and milk, they got chickens and goats, or they have a cow. Pretty darn good. What about domestic animals like chickens and goats? Absolutely part of the permaculture cycle, as they both eat vegetative trash. I used to toss my chickens lemon rinds. Chickens free range, eating bugs and worms and seeds from weeds. Goats eat anything, even poison ivy, I've been told, and their milk and cheese is considered superior to cow's milk. Sheep will keep the lawn cropped low better than a lawnmower, another lazy gardening technique, and will give you wool for garments as well as delicious sheep cheese. I love sheep cheese. By the way, and this is an oddity I heard from somebody about why we all stress that we have to have grass and mow the grass. And we are slave to our gardens, from May through October or whatever. It comes from how the elite lived in the castles or whatever in Europe. They had big sheep herds roaming around, the lord of the manor did, and they would crop down the grass near the manor because the sheep eat it very close to the ground, crop. Anyway, so we all want to be, like the lord of the manor and have big grass, fields around our house because we want to be hoity-toity and we want to be the elite. So that's where, otherwise, why are we doing that? When you think about it, why not just put down a ground cover, and let it go, rather than out with a lawnmower in the sun. Okay. We have often on the Zeta Report here on USA EBN stressed bare bones survival, where you are starting out from scratch. On the September 7th, 2015 show, we covered being naked and afraid with nothing where civilization has been lost. And this is what I posted as inclusive in that YouTube or that hour. I'm not sure if that's still on USA EBM. You keep your iPods that long, your archives, Andre, or do you just recycle them? Yeah?
Absolutely. You can look up the old episodes on the Blog Talk Radio site, blogtalkradio.com/USAEBN. They're listed chronologically, so just look up as you scroll through. There's a bunch of shows. But we're also on Spreaker as well. All the podcasts for the Zeta Report are listed under Zeta Talk on Spreaker, USA EBN.
Yeah. Okay, so you got it twice over, and I have it on YouTube, so we're good covered. And I say, starting fires, getting clean drinking water by desalination or distillation, eating bugs and worms, eating predators such as rats and squirrels, weeds for vitamins, mushroom safety, edible seaweed and duckweed, kudzu qualities, temp tents and tiny houses, bamboo and bermed housing construction using hand tools, and house flotation devices. So, we've been at this and hammering this. Think naked and afraid you got nothing. And you'd be surprised how well you'll do. As a matter of fact, you'll be far healthier than you are now. For one thing, you'll get your exercise. You're not going to be blubby fat. You're not going to get cane sugar. So you'd be surprised. People think, and no punching the time clock because you got to go to work. Kids, you tell the kids, oh, school's out, but you've got to come and help Daddy and Mommy, which is what they want to do anyway. They don't want to sit and learn some history lesson. And in 1904, some the Duke of Ellington. Oh, who cares? They want to be where it's at, the cutting edge, what's important, and very active oriented, and learn by watching the people who are out there doing it. Most people cringe when I say that one can survive by eating bugs and weeds. Highly nutritious weeds are right at hand, such as duckweed and kudzu. Everyday weeds such as plantain and dandelion have vitamins and minerals, as well as calories. The list is almost endless and no need to tend the gardens. These are hardy veggies. One of our best Zeta reports was the January 4th, 2016 show on vitamins in nature. You can absolutely be healthy without the vitamin bottle or your daily orange. Bugs and weeds are high in B vitamins. Weeds have vitamin C. Sunshine will give you vitamin D. And I'm here to tell you, I did this when I consider this my crowning show because I spent 2 days. Every necessary vitamin that man needs and where you get them in nature, and they're all covered. If you eat the weeds and you eat the bugs, there you are. Not a one. And the ones that did themselves the most harm were the elite. They would create white rice from brown rice, and there were the B vitamins, or that type of thing. They would bleach flour, too. There was another one. We have to have white bread, because it's just not pure otherwise. And they would die. They would get all these fatal beriberi and pellagra or whatever, these fatal vitamin deficiency diseases because they were stupid and elite. Okay. But you don't need to be thrown into the situation. You can start. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to be naked and afraid one of these days. I live in the city. What can I do? I have an apartment. Even those in the middle of a city can get started on a permaculture garden. Growing Power is a model for this. I mean, they set up in the inner cities. And I'm talking a rotting, decrepit inner cities, where there is no money. All there is people, who are willing to step up and help themselves, and they do. It's just so heartwarming to see. They compost with earthworms to build their own soil and use minimal space right in the heart of these cities. Urban gardens are becoming very popular and can be done even on patios and above ground. What's wrong with container gardening? You can do that. Don't tell me you can't do it. You can move your container indoors if you want to run it through the winter. The next step up from being naked and afraid is to learn how to save seed. These are intrinsic to gardening, and all those gardening dreams assume the availability of seed at the stores. What if the shelves are bare and there is no distribution and no internet shopping available either? Say, oh, get the catalog for gardening and you can get, and we'll send you seed for this and this and this, and oh, isn't it wonderful? And then after this year, you got nothing because you don't know how to save seed, and you didn't think. Okay, there's a learning curve to seed saving. Although some seeds are easy, like drying a corn cob or shucking dry beans into a can, many seeds will not sprout unless gathered from ripe fruit, so that those peppers or squash and melons should be ripe almost to the point of rotting before harvesting. Rotting doesn't hurt. So you got it, so, oh, can't eat this, it's rotting. Oh, no, wait. Now you're going to save your seed. So tomatoes, too, need to have white mold eaten away at their slime, or the seed thinks it is still in the tomato and simply will not sprout. I mean, if you take the seed directly from the tomato and spread it out and dry it and say, well, there I am, that seed will appear to be dead when you try to plant it because the mold, the slime, is still there. But if it molds away, what you do is you put it in a dish and a little water, and it gets covered with white mold, and you stir it around a little bit for a couple of days, and then you rinse off the white mold and all the crap, and those seeds you can dry, and they will sprout because they know they're not in the tomato anymore. Strawberries propagate by runners or cuttings, and potatoes also. You cut up a potato that has those, what they call eyes. If you put a potato in a humid area this time of year, oh, can't eat it. It's got all these green things trying to grow out. Well, plant them. What they do is they cut it so that every piece of the potato has a green eye, and that becomes a new plant, and there you got a bunch of new potatoes in the ground in the fall. Garlic can no longer go to seed, so the cloves must be planted. I read up on this, and it said that garlic is so domesticated for so long, has been so beloved of chefs around the world, that it has lost the ability to go to seed. You try to get potato seed, I think they have a little flower and stuff, but there's really, it doesn't work. And the same thing with strawberries. I think it has seeds on the berries, and I'm just not sure if that works at all, but I do know that runners, you have to be an idiot not to notice all the runners. The runners have their own little plant at the end of them, and their little runner plant gets roots and it goes down. All you have to do is put a strawberry plant in the middle of a big area and let it go, and pretty soon your whole field is covered by strawberry plants. That's how they work. They're very aggressive and efficient. Okay, so get started, guys. Learn how to save seed. Practice this. Practice makes perfect. One of the best-kept secrets is meatless meals, possible if you have Lyzine-rich veggies in your diet. You can be a vegetarian and be as healthy. Amaranth and corn combined provide the equivalent of red meat. I thought that was stunning. These are grains that can be stored and kept well through the winter, as do buckwheat and various legumes. So, plant some amaranth, plant some corn, and you can eat the whole amaranth plant, but you save the seeds and you save the corn, and through the winter you're mixing those together and grinding them up and whatever, and you've got lysine and you've got the equivalent of red meat. No need to keep those big cows. And people spend so much time, and so much space, herds of cattle, and we've got to have our beef. And, when times get tough, and you want to try to have your whole family from half your yard or whatever, you can do it, but you won't be able to keep a cow out there. Probably not. Better to have a goat. Okay. Why haven't you heard about this on TV? It's all about the latest big burgers, making you think you could not survive without them. We're brainwashed. What do you see on TV? Do you hear this stuff? No. Hey, we can have something in 13 layers of cheese and whatever, and then a little bacon up on top, and not only will that give you a heart attack, it's not teaching you anything about permaculture practices or, how to save seed or, learn to save seed and start an earthworm compost. And voila, you can call yourself a permaculture practitioner and impress everybody at that new age coffee club that you've just joined. Well, I practice permaculture. Well, what do you do? Well, basically as little as possible.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yes. Wow, good for you. He's got it. Yes, he's got it.
Oh,
all
Mildred.
Right. Yes.
Do you go to Quick question, Nancy. Do you go to a lot of coffee socials?
No. I just don't have time. People, they want to stop by for tea or whatever, and I said it's just not possible. Because I have so much crammed into my life, and it's only going to get worse. Oh man, because we're beginning to see Nibiru all over the place, and it's more and more visible. People are seeing something up in the sky. Mostly, they see the moon swirls, which are very bright. They're long tubes, and when they turn such that sunlight runs down the tube, it acts like a flashlight with light bouncing off the sides, beep, beep, and so it focuses the light coming out the end, and they say, oh my God, there's an orb. Usually those are to the left and above the sun, and Nibiru itself is to the right and low, and it can only be visible on occasion when the sunlight glints off it properly because it's so shrouded by red dust. But along those lines, I wanted to mention that just within the last day or two, the Schumann Resonance, in case anyone is unaware, it's normally at the 7.83. It is the resonance, the vibration of the lower atmosphere that is all Earth creatures and the whole fauna and flora, blah, 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 is used to. And, it is also the of the yogas, that there we are, 7.83. Well, it's been spiking. And last year in August, we did an article about that where it was up to 36 megahertz from 7.83. Now it's over 40. And on occasion it'll spike, and it just did that early on May 5th. So what that causes in man is you get headaches, you get very irritable, and insomnia, but irritability is a key sign. And it doesn't last, but, if you're blowing up at everybody and you don't know why, blame the Schumann Resonance. And that is because the magnetic North Pole of Nibiru is pointing toward us, and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to EMP causing electrical problems, pulse shorts, things blowing up, fritzing out, planes going down. If they go over water, that's especially dangerous because just like lightning likes water, and wants to ground in the underneath water. EMP will do that too. It'll seek that out. So if you fly a plane over water at a time when it's pulsing, the plane can. That's what happened to Malaysia 370 and other planets, Air France 447. Which is well documented on the Zeta Talk website as to why it was an EMP and not anything that they claim. So I think I had a couple of other things, if we have the time. The Hawaii quake, 6.9, and also in January 23rd, we had a big one up there in the Aleutians, 8.2, was huge. Mind you, according to Zetas, in the opinion of the Zetas, the USGS is not giving you the proper magnitude. It is 2 or more magnitudes above what they tell you. So the 6.9 was really a 9, and the 8.2 up in the Aleutian Islands in January was really 11, or between a 10 and 11. Okay, and they're huge, So why out there in the Pacific? Because when the Aleutians had that biggie, it was due to the Pacific plate compressing. What the Zetas have stated, has given us a diagram, is that the Pacific plate, which is so big, if you turn the globe so you're looking right at the Pacific, you barely see land. It's just, it's all water. And then if you turn it around to where you're looking on the other side of the globe, all you have is all the land, but no water, So essentially, the Pacific is just, how can that be one plate? It's huge. And they said it's 4 plates, and this is the way they fold. The one along the west coast up to the Aleutians, down including the Hawaiian Islands, is one part of that, and that one is riding over the part that is over there toward Japan, which is pushing under. So every time Hawaii has any kind of quakes like this, it gains a couple feet. It gains some. So now, meanwhile, they're also having this Uzi volcano that they have going on. We're getting a lot of signs, that in the Schumann Resonance, that it's picked up. The earth changes, the wobbling back and forth more violent, and the pace of change, earth changes, is picked up. And it's only a matter of time until we get into the last weeks, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. So, did you have anything to add, Andre? Or otherwise, I was going to talk about what the melting ice of Antarctica has revealed.
Well, actually, a quick clarification on acre. I was off by a factor of 2. An acre defined, it's pretty old school, Nancy. It's like furlongs by rods, and roughly it comes down to 66 feet by 660 feet, so a total of 43,560 square feet. So on a football field, an acre would be about 90% of the area of a football field, or roughly the size of a soccer pitch. So a soccer field is basically an acre. So when you're talking about 1/10 of an acre, it's not much. No,
it's little, and it doesn't take much, because people have said, how much land do you need for your family? Well, you don't have to go out and buy a farm and say, well, that 40 acres over there is for one. No. If you recycle and you go at it, like a real lazy farmer, and put everything back in that you take out, it doesn't take much, and you grow rich black soil. They show these pictures. It makes you salivate practically. You want to eat it. It looks wonderful. They show, here's depleted soil, and it's like beige colored, and it looks like sand, and it acts like sand. And they say, this is soil that was built with the permaculture and everything back in, and the earthworms, and blah, 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 and it's rich and black and loamy, and wonderful. That stuff actually smells good, too. That's one of the things gardeners will tell you. Getting out in the soil is the smell of the soil. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually, just side note, trivia, but there's actually a microbe in the soil, part of the bacteria. It has to be a live soil, so that sandy crap, you're not going to get anything from it as far as, when you smell it or be around the soil. Actually affects your mental state. It's actually good for you, but it's got to be that black, rich stuff.
Really?
You know, when you get your hands in the dirt, you feel better.
Oh yeah, that's what people say. And growing power it didn't just start with the depleted soil and start from nothing. They brought in, a few buckets of soil to start with. And then they added their green compost and added the earthworms and this and that, and they kept it going. So they had a starter bucket of real soil to go. But then if you take your green compost and you let the earthworms go at it, they turn it into soil. They eat it all up and they poop it all out, and it's nitrogen-rich poop, and all this stuff about, everybody has to poop, including the earthworms. Yes. In Antarctica,
it's
down
recycling.
there.
Ultimately,
it's
all recycling. It's what the earth does naturally. You just got to be part of it. That's all.
That's right. Think that way. You're helping Mother Nature. Right? She's been around a long time. Antarctica has been melting away, and one of the things that it's shown in the last couple of months, and has popped up on Google Earth, and been shown by there's a guy that does a really good job documenting, Mr. MBBB333 or something like that, here it is. What is that long tube thingy? And there it was, and I went, you can go, with the Latin long and find it on Google Earth, and there it is. So they're not photoshopping it, and they're not making this up, and they said it looks like a telescope. It might be a telescope, but in two-way, telescoping here and then there at either end, and what the heck, right? Well, the Zeta said this is a desalination device where you can see that it's along the land at the water's edge, and so the ice is melted back, shrinking into Antarctica. And they said this is where the seawater would flow through, and what they would get out at some point would be a clean drinking water desalination device, and spitting out the other end overly salty water, presumably. Now, another one that's popped up, and nobody knew what that was either, didn't know what to say, is what the Zetas called a launch site. This is all Anunnaki stuff, where the Anunnaki were in Antarctica. Those are the big giants that built the Great Pyramids, and heads of Easter Island, are similar to their heads. That's what they look like, all over the world. The Mayan culture where they ripped hearts out, and big giants, and got chased off the earth. According to the Zetas, in the opinion of the Zetas, they got chased off the earth because they were intruding on man's ability to use the earth as a spiritual schoolhouse. They were too intimidating, so free choice was being taken away from man, so off they went. They were chased away. But anyway, they took most of their technology with them, but they couldn't take everything. So you won't find their technology down there and all of this stuff, but you will get the idea that something went on. Well, what does the launch site look like? Well, these guys said it almost looked like an antenna array, a series of poles connected somehow up on top that fell over. And the Zetas described this, as a launching site, where, because you could see a curve coming into this, where they had, and the line across was a break, that they could remove at the last minute, and it wouldn't get an abortive launch, and it would go, kind of at an angle, at a tilt. You have to really read Zeta Talk and see the picture. But my point is, as Antarctica melts, this stuff is being revealed. So, I'm about talked out. The only thing left we could talk about would be Korea, Andre.
Well, yeah, let's touch on that because
okay.
I think that, my thing is we don't talk a lot about politics on this show because we're more about preparedness and
right.
Doing it yourself and providing you with that information and other information about Earth changes. But, Korea's, we're on the verge of reunification of Korea, which is kind of a big deal.
It's big.
Yeah.
And here's another woo-woo tidbit from the Zetas, Okay, in the opinion of the Zetas, reincarnation exists, and we all have many, many lifetimes, okay? There are good souls and bad souls. We're all supposed to be growing toward the good, but some are immature and are very selfish and controlling and don't care if they hurt other people, and etc. And the Kim of North Korea, the old Kim, was like that. He was like a bully, and the Zetas described him as a bully mentality, Didn't give a hoot. His citizens were starving. He couldn't care, Anyway, and he was trying to get nuclear power so he could intimidate everybody, and everybody would be afraid of standing up to him, so they would just give in to him, and and it was all this yucky stuff that everybody knows people like this. Well, he was one of those. So what happened all of a sudden? That all of a sudden we're getting cooperation and reunification, and we're going to de-arm and what? Well, according to the Zetas, what you have is, people have heard of possession, when you have to call in the priest and they, chase off, whoever the evil spirit that's taken hold of this child who's now throwing up, green soup or whatever. So, and the good type of possession is called a walk-in, where a good soul goes into a body and the person behaves better than they did before. Well, if you have a really selfish bully mentality and he's not getting his way because Trump is hollering at him, we're going to come in there, and China is saying, we're not going to go along with this, we're not giving you any food or any help, and he's being squeezed, he's not getting his way, it's not going, well, he left. And he decided to vacate and end his carnation, leaving an empty body, which was Fat Kim, right? In comes a walk-in, who is a real high-quality guy. And if you don't, the administrative force here in our part of the universe was most concerned that this gets settled. And they had somebody lined up, and the minute Kim walked out, whoosh, they moved this guy in, and then you had this transformation which everybody is stunned about. They keep saying, well, there must be some trick. This must be something. We can't really trust him. Because, of course, they're not reading Zeta Talk and spiritual and incarnations and star-ins and star walk-ins and, this is woo-woo stuff, right? But that's what it is, woo-woo stuff. And what they predict is the future bodes well. Now, according to the rules about walk-ins, if the soul leaves and a walk-in happens and the original soul wants to come back, the walk-in has to get out and return the body. Could the old Kim come back? Well, according to Zetas, what happens